Don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. Behind the closed doors. Synopsis. I'm going out, and as the alpha, I thought you should be informed. I gazed at her and squinted my eyes. You cannot leave dressed like that. She stepped in closer and opened the door wider. A she-wolf entered, donning a dress that was too short, and her face was heavily made up. I swear that will ruin the pillows. I rose from my chair, turned, and focused on Christy, stalking toward her. Do you want me to treat you like I treat them, Tell me, will you prefer it from behind or the traditional way? I inquired, lowering my voice to a sultry tone, observing her reaction, which revealed more than she wanted to show. I noticed her squeezing her thighs together and moistening her lips, so I treaded closer to her, placed my hand on her arm, and spun her around. Before she could object, I secured my hand around her throat, applying pressure but not excessively tight. I leaned down and breathed in her scent. Is this what you desire? I questioned. I pushed her away from me and chuckled. I hope you enjoy yourself tonight. Episode 1. Past I ran and ran until my paws started bleeding from broken sticks and sharp stones, until my head started throbbing and my heart nearly beating out of my chest. How could they do that? I thought as I came to a stop beside a small pond far away from my now broken home. Sitting and staring at the reflection in the water of my broken wolf tore my heart. It made me feel powerless. I've failed my wolf. I couldn't save our mate. How could they do this, was all that kept running through my mind. A broken howl ripped through the skies as my wolf cried from a broken heart and a dented soul for his mate. For his dead mate. They will pay for what they have done, was all my wolf said before he cut me off and started running again. I don't know where he is going because we have no home, no family, and every pack has been warned and threatened with serious consequences if any allow us in. I know we are dangerous and I know that my wolf can be reckless. That is why Blaze is only allowed out when I deem it necessary and no longer than needed. I have fought Blaze for control for more than an hour now. I have no idea where we are or where we're going. I gave one final push and broke the wall. Where are we, Blaze? He was silent and then said, Look around, and welcome to our new home. Blaze said and retreated to the back of my mind, giving me full control. I took the opportunity and shifted back to my human form before Blaze could take over again. I was stunned into silence for a second because I couldn't smell anything except the forest and trees, which are huge by the way. I couldn't pick up any wolf scents. No rogues and no packs nearby either. I turned around slowly and took in my surroundings and how quiet it is here. What is this place, Blaze? I asked my wolf and he just scoffed at me without answering and then he was gone, leaving me alone and confused. So very confused. I took a deep breath as I stared at a broken down house that looked like it used to be a pack house or a very old human vacation home. Sniffing the air, I couldn't smell anything. No scent of human or supernatural beings. I took a step towards the house. The steps need some work but not much. Just a few broken tiles that need to be replaced. I stood silently in front of the door and as soon as my hand made contact with the knob a chill ran down my spine. Come on Zanan, there is nothing here. Just open the door. I gave myself a pep talk before opening the door and stepping inside. I had to cover my nose so that I didn't break out in a sneeze attack from the dust that lay like a blanket over every surface in the house. It's so thick I swear you can cut your way through it. This place is huge and very spacious. To the left is a dining hall that can seat at least 500 beings. To the right there is a common room. Game room for sure. There are about 10 bedrooms downstairs and a kitchen as big as the dining hall. Then left from the kitchen is a formal dining area with a small lounge. The weird thing is, the house is not as run down inside as it is on the outside, and every piece of furniture is still there, even the kitchen is fully stocked without food though. I walked over to the staircase and took 2 steps at a time. The second floor existed of only bedrooms. Not too small, but not very big either. Each room had its own bathroom and there are about 30 bedrooms on the second floor. I looked at the staircase and felt a chill down my spine again, but this time it gave me goosebumps. Rubbing my hands together, I made my way up to the last floor and, like the second floor, there was only bedrooms, but the one at the end of the hall to my left caught my attention. All the other doors are light brown solid wood doors, but this one was painted black and it stood open where the rest are closed. I made my way to the door and my hair on my neck and arms stood up. I don't like this feeling, but I swallowed my fear and moved forward, stepping into the room. My breath caught in my throat as I looked around. This room is huge, like 4 times the size of all the rest, and a king-sized bed stood proudly in the middle of the room. Looking around, my eyes landed on something that looked like a painting. Standing in front of the painting, I looked for a cloth to wipe the dust but used my hand instead. As I wiped the painting, cold chills ran through my whole body as I stood frozen on the spot. My heart started beating really fast and it felt like I might pass out. I thought this place would be perfect for us, as no one ever came here and none ever dared to. I didn't know what to do as I stood there staring at the soulless eyes of one of the most dangerous rogues that had ever lived in wolf history. Odin Cork. What, Blaze? I shouldn't have ever come here. Zanan, this is where we are and this is where we will stay. My wolf went quiet for a second and then said, tonight there will be a full moon. He sounded so sad and powerless that I felt bad. I couldn't do anything. Staring at the painting, I recall a story my father once told me about Odin. He never used to be a rogue. He was Prince Odin Cork, son of King Mario and Queen Eliza Cork. The king and queen of Low Valley Kingdom, also the king and queen of wolves. When he found his mate, he abused her so badly that she eventually rejected him and disappeared. Years later, he found her in a human town with a small child and he got so jealous that he confronted her right that second. When he asked about the child, she got defensive and attacked him. He was so consumed in teaching her a lesson that he never realized the child was gone. He took out a knife made from silver and stabbed her directly in the heart. With her last breath she said, he was your son Odin. That is why I left. I didn't want him to be like you. Then she died and Odin went crazy. He lost all touch of reality of good and bad as he searched for the child, but he never found the child and he never even found a trace. It got so bad that his father and mother banished him from the kingdom and made him a rogue. The pack started feeling unsafe and he had already killed multiple pack members who just looked at him the wrong way. The story has it that he built an army of rogues of all species and attacked every pack in search for his son. He wiped out multiple packs because no one could ever fight against him and live to tell the tale. Years later, his body was found outside the kingdom. No one knows how he died or where he came from, as no one knew where he lived and operated from. They went to search for the pack he had created, but all they found was a battleground full of dead bodies and piles of ashes. His parents felt the loss of a son and the kingdom a loss for their prince. He was given a royal funeral and laid to rest on royal grounds. If no one knew where he lived, then how did you find this place, Blaze? Zanan asked, more shocked than angry. He waited patiently until Blaze decided to answer. They did find the place, but it was passed down from wolf to wolf without the human's knowledge. This place has to be kept secret. Now it will be our home just as it was once his. I was at a loss for words as I stood like a statue staring into those cold dead eyes. I shivered and made my way back outside. Okay, there are no silver chains and I don't have wolfsbane on me. So we'll do this the old-fashioned way, Blaze. To the dungeons we go then. My name is Zanan Black. I'm 26 years old and I have built my own pack. Every outcast here is like family. Together we are one family. My pack and family betrayed me when I was 16 years old and needed them the most, and to show me how much they hated me, they killed my mate right in front of me. Before I could tear them all apart, I was shot with a dart filled with wolfsbane. I was dumped in rogue territory and left for dead. I was found by a female that nursed me and helped me heal until I was strong enough to go on my own. She never told me her name and she never spoke. The only time she did speak was when she said, "Don't ever lose hope, Zanan Black." I was taken aback because I never told her my name, and when I turned around she was gone. I had to fight my fair share of rogues in order to survive, and in the process I became stronger, faster and more fearless. It was the first time in my life that I could fight without holding back in fear of killing someone. I have always been stronger than anyone in my old pack, so I always had medical bills to pay and no one wanted to be my sparring partner anymore, not even my father. My wolf is pitch black, so black he almost looks blue, with a white diamond on his forehead and a white lightning bolt on his left hind leg. The weird thing is, I swear the diamond once looked like a crown, but I've never seen it again. My wolf, as you know, is strong and fast. Even though I am an alpha's son, my command has always been stronger than my father's and every alpha I've ever met, and no one could ever command me. I became an outcast and everyone was scared of me, except the power-hungry sluts that had always been after my body and my rank, but I wanted none of them. I am waiting for my second chance, if I have one. Or will die alone. My wolf has one flaw and it has never been this bad. It got worse after the betrayal and the death of our mate. On the night of a full moon, Blaze loses control and loses all sense of reality and shuts down emotionally. Everything and everyone he sees becomes his enemy. He ends up killing them without any remorse or recollection the following day. I shifted when I was just 12 years old, which is impossible for a normal wolf. Usually the first shift happens when you are 16 or 18 at the latest. Then your body is mature enough to find a mate and accommodate your wolf size. When I shifted, my father was distant. He sent me off to a wolf camp, which is like a military school for humans, but if you are a wolf it is much, much worse. I returned home when I was 16, and that is when my life fell apart and my pack disowned me. The first full moon at home, I tried to explain to my father about my wolf and to just be careful. I stayed in my room the whole night and everyone else went for a pack run. I got a feeling that something was wrong. I ran outside and followed my wolf instincts, and not long after I smelled blood, and a lot of blood. I followed the smell and lost control of the scene in front of me. Rogues were tearing up a young she-wolf and they killed my sister. I shifted and started fighting back, but as soon as I threw off one wolf, the rest ran away, dragging the hurt wolf with them. My brother came around a bush and screamed his lungs out. I felt lost and scared. Whimpering, I walked over to my sister's body and started licking at her wounds. My father never believed me. He accused me of killing them, and soon after, the whole pack did. One thought never left my mind. How did my brother get there so fast, and why did I not smell him or the rogues, and why did they leave without a fight? I was taken and thrown into the dungeons where I was tortured every day for weeks, and when the story never changed, the torture got worse and worse until it stopped. 5 months later, on the day of my banishment, I found my mate. She took one look at me and all I could see was sadness in her eyes. She walked up to my father and said to him, "I'm a traitor. Zanan is my mate and I will go with him. We'll never come back. Please let me go with him, she pleaded with my father, and he wanted nothing of it. He first pushed her away and said it was not happening, but when she kept pleading, he lost his temper and ripped her throat out. My father looked at me and then spat on the lifeless body of my mate. Everything went dark and I felt myself breaking, drowning in pain and betrayal. I was on my way to class when I was stopped with a bag being thrown in my way. As I tried to walk past them and the bag, my hair was pulled and I was thrown to the floor. This happens so much I actually know what comes next. I said, pick it up. I reached to pick up the bag, but before I could reach it, my hair was pulled so hard it felt like it was being ripped from my skull. Everyone started laughing at me while they kept kicking and punching me wherever they found a spot. I covered my face with my arms and curled into a ball as small as I could. This is part of my everyday life, and I mean this happens every day. What is going on here? A booming voice shouted, one I know all too well. My fate is sealed, either I die today or I'm going rogue. We were teaching this little thief a lesson, she tried stealing my bag. Natasha said, and everyone else agreed with her and told their side of the story. Well, if that is the case, we certainly don't want a little thief in our pack now, do we? I tried to get up and move away, but my body refused to move even a little bit. I lifted my eyes and looked at the soon-to-be alpha of the Greyville Stone Pack. Roland Green. He cracked his knuckles and bent down to my level. So you are a thief, huh? Well, that's too bad. For you, I mean. He grabbed a fistful of my hair and pulled me off the ground. Struggling to get up with every part of my body protesting, I managed to stand my full height of 5.9 feet. Do you know what happens to thieves? He asked in a hissing voice close to my ear. A shiver ran down my spine because I knew where I was going now. It's basically like my second bedroom, just much, much colder. Danny, Tony, take her to the dungeons and make sure she is strapped in tight. Like two lost puppies, they jumped and did what was asked, and the worst thing is Tony is my brother and also the Gamma, but he chose his rank over me a long time ago. To him and my sister I'm nothing. I begged and pleaded, but all that got me was more beatings and more broken bones. By the time I was chained up, I had at least 7 broken bones. I have been here so many times. I have my own cell carved with my name and blood. I have wished for death so many times, but they never kill me, starve me, and break me, but I'm waiting for the day my body finally gives in, at least then I will be free and no longer in pain. The dungeon door opened and a pair of footsteps stopped in front of my cell. In here again, Crystal. For what this time? I looked up and saw my sister smirking at me. They all hate me for some reason and I don't care why anymore. Just go away, Natasha. I will right after you tell me why you are here again. What do you want from me? You have everything you wanted, the Alpha, Luna title and all the glory in the world. True, and it's all thanks to you. I mean, if you were anyone else, I would never have stood a chance, but it looks like I won again. You know, I really did feel sorry when he rejected you. I mean, that sort of pain can be lethal for a wolf, but then again, you are just a pathetic human. You never feel sorry because you have no feelings. So just go away. Ouch. Anyway, I'm your torturer today, seeing that you wanted my bag. So I'll see you after 5. She turned and left and I went limp. What have I ever done to deserve this from any of them? If only my parents were still alive, none of this would have ever happened. You go around thinking you can do what you want. Have you not learned your lesson, or are you just that dumb? I hung my head and groaned due to pain and irritation. I looked up and saw Roland leaning against the wall. Just go away, Roland. You have what you want and here I am once again, so you win. He looked at me and got closer. I don't think you get it, do you? If it wasn't for who you are, then we could have been happy. I would have treated you like a queen because you would have been my queen, but I guess the moon goddess had some sick joke to play. I'd rather spend every day in this cell for the rest of my life than ever share a bed with you even for just a second. He stepped closer to me and slapped me so hard I felt my spine crack from the way my head swung and the way I'm chained up. Spitting out the blood in my mouth, I gave a sideways smile and said, "This is why I will never share your bed. If you could hit me now, what would you do when I'm with you?" He looked at me and for a split second there was emotion visible in his eyes and then it was gone. He turned around and walked off, slamming every door in his path. Roland POV. I left Crystal's cell feeling angry and, in a way, guilty. Yes, I did hit her, but that wasn't my intention at first. I just wanted to scare her and make her obedient. She always had her own mind and did her own things. Putting her in the dungeon and seeing how broken and helpless she looks is almost like a drug to me. She is completely at my mercy and it took every ounce of my self-control not to ruin that pretty face of hers. I did promise Natasha she could have her turn today, seeing that it was her bag. I don't want Crystal, but I don't want to give her a chance to find her second mate either. If she has one. The day I rejected her, my wolf stopped talking to me and he shut me out. I haven't shifted in over 6 months now and my father and the pack are suspecting that something is wrong. I made my way to my office and busied myself with pack work to make the time go faster. Crystal has a choice today. She either dies or stay hopeless for the rest of her life. Natasha POV. When I got to Crystal's cell she was fast asleep, but looking at the position she is in and the black and blue spots on her skin, she can't be too comfortable. I cleared my throat and nothing happened, so I linked Tony and Danny to bring me a nice big bucket of ice water. I pulled my long blonde hair into a ponytail and put on some gloves. I don't want to break a nail or expose my skin to what is to come. Natasha, are you sure you want to do this? Tony asked as soon as he came in. You were close with her, Tony. I was always the one being left out, the one being pushed away. I could never train or run or even spar with anyone because I was never good enough. You never wanted to, Natasha, because you were always so scared of getting dirt on your clothes or breaking a nail. Tony, if you don't want to be here, then leave, but you have a hand in this as much as Roland and me. So there is no going back after this. Tony kept quiet and just handed me the bucket. I picked up the whip and walked into her cell. I poured the bucket of ice-cold water over Crystal and watched as she jerked awake looking startled. Let the fun begin. Crystal POV. My name is Crystal Stone and I'm 19 years old. I haven't shifted yet. I have short dark hair and crystal clear blue eyes and a perfect body. I have curves in all the right places and I fit into my clothes comfortably. I was woken up with a bucket of ice-cold water and a whip that slashed right through my skin. I am so used to the pain that I didn't even scream or flinch. This is routine with them. They hit me and take out their anger on me and when they are done they leave. I'm not getting any food or water, so I have grown accustomed to hunger and thirst. So, Danny, why do you think she hasn't shifted yet? I don't know, maybe her wolf left her or she just doesn't have one. Well, she must have something because she heals awfully fast for a human. Natasha said and looked at me as if waiting for me to say something. I know I must have a wolf because I heal fast and, even though I am starved, my body never loses its weight. It's sad actually, because a 19-year-old who hasn't shifted yet means they never will. Tony said, and he looked at me with so much hatred and sadness, but for what? I stopped counting by /10. The pain is slowly fading and numbness is taking its place. The whipping stopped and a silver tray was brought in by Danny. Ah, and by the way, sis. You will not get out of this unless you make one of two choices. 1. You will be my personal slave, and I mean slave, or 2. You take the coward's way out and you'll be in the ground tomorrow. I looked up at her and said I choose option 2, no matter how much of a coward I may seem like to you. You know somehow I knew this outcome, but I must say I will miss this sis. I mean you chained up and completely at my mercy, but hey, I can always replace you, right? I saw her walking over to the silver tray and picked up a needle. I have no idea what is in there, but it stinks, and a lot. It actually burns my nose. We don't know what you are and I'm sure you don't know either, so we mixed a few things together, especially for you. She had a sardonic smile on her face as she walked closer to me and injected whatever was in there into my body. At first I couldn't feel anything, but then it started burning worse than any beating I've ever had. For the first time in a long time, I screamed out loud as I felt my body burning from the inside out. I looked at Natasha and Tony, who were looking at me with a satisfying smile, and said, "You will get what you deserve, if not from me, then someone else." Everything went dark and I could feel my heartbeat slowing down, beating slower and slower, and then just nothing. There is no white light, there is no fire and no one waiting for me. Darkness is all I see. Third person POV. Great, even in death you leave a mess behind. Tony, unchain her and take her to the morgue. She'll be in the ground tomorrow, Natasha said, and walked out. Danny, come in here and help me. We need to erase every trace that she was ever in here. Tony looked at the lifeless body of his sister and wondered what she felt when she died, but because of the scream he knew she was in a hell of a lot of pain. They unchained her body and let it drop to the floor. When the body dropped, they both heard a voice whispering softly, just loud enough for them to hear. "The way y'all will be punished for killing a child of the moon in cold blood is beyond your knowledge, young wolves." They looked at each other and then started searching for where the voice came from, but they didn't see anything, nor could they smell anything. Danny stood over Crystal's body and said, "It's a shame that such a nice body will go to waste." Tony growled and said, "Just hurry up and let's get this cleaned up before anyone comes down here." Tony POV. I always thought that Crystal would leave the pack instead of going through this every day, but she has been stubborn ever since she was little. I'm 3 years older than her and I remember the day my mother brought her home after she was found in the woods. All my love died for Crystal the day she killed my mother and blamed it on rogues, but there never was any smell of rogues being present. Crystal blamed my mother for lying to her because she never shifted on her 16th birthday, so my father told her the truth about where she came from. Since that day, Crystal has been different, training more, and she had a lot more anger but never took it out on anyone, unlike us. I stood there staring at her lifeless body and felt a chill run down my spine. I know it's too late, but I wish you could have just run away and then none of this would have ever happened. You would still have been alive. We picked up her broken body. Blood was still dripping on the floor and we carried her to the hospital where we laid her on a bed and made up a story about how we found her like this in the woods. We went for a run and then smelled blood and came across Crystal. We were too late to save her. Danny said to the doctor, who just nodded. Danny ordered the she-wolf to keep her mouth shut and never tell anyone about this. She nodded and then walked off. Now we need to keep Alpha Rodney off our backs. Present Zanian POV. Zanian, you are not getting any younger, you know. So how about we get you drunk until you pass out? I looked over at Zane and raised a brow at him. He is the closest I could have to a beta. I hope that one day this pack will be blessed and we can become a real pack. I built this pack for rogues who were kicked out of their pack, rogues who didn't have any other choice, and those who left because being rogue was safer. Each of us smells different from all the other rogues. Although we don't smell like rotten meat or burned flesh, it doesn't mean we aren't rogues. Zane, I told you I have other things to do. Besides, wolves can't get drunk. Oh, you know we have bought enough alcohol to sustain a liquor store for at least a year, so you'll get drunk. Besides, you have been working here for the past 5 years, so either you share with me or you get drunk. I moved away from my office window and stood in front of Zane. Zane swallowed audibly as I towered over him with power rolling off me in waves. I looked at his expression and just had to laugh. What are we drinking then? Zane relaxed and gave me a goofy smile. Follow me and I'll show you. I stayed in the house Odin once lived in, but I made some serious changes. I made the place a bit more friendly and lively, less scary and chilling. I found that on the 3rd floor there were more than just rooms. There is an entertainment room, a kitchen not as big as the one downstairs but spacious. There are 2 offices and the bedrooms are a bit bigger than the ones downstairs. This used to be a high-rank floor alphas, betas, gamma, and their mates and family. Ever since I started this pack, space has been running out pretty quickly, so we have had to build more houses and cottages on the ground. It worked out perfectly because now the empty space is being used. I have a total of 400 wolves in the pack and more are coming each day from around the world who heard about this pack, but only their wolves can bring them here. We had a small problem with unwelcomed visitors who didn't want to live by our rules. They got dealt with very quickly. I never took a mate and I never will. When a wolf's mate dies, a part of the wolf dies too, and for an alpha, it's much worse because he needs his Luna. I was losing my mind for a while but then I came across Zane and Kyle. They are brothers, but also the first wolves I brought here. Making my way downstairs, I could hear laughter and loud cheers. You finally got the big bad alpha out of his study, Kyle said, to which Zane just shrugged his shoulders. My mouth fell open when I walked into the kitchen and looked at the sight before me. Every service in the kitchen is covered with food and alcohol, even the tables are covered. There is enough food here to feed a whole army for 3 days with leftovers. You might want to close your mouth, Alpha, before a fly takes it as an invitation. I looked to the left and Cindy stood beside me. I looked at her and she just laughed at me. I never announced myself as Alpha. I was chosen by the pack, but not before I have proven myself. I'm not their real Alpha but they see me as one and they respect me for my position. Who paid for all this stuff? I asked and looked at Zane and Kyle's guilty faces. Kyle reached into his back pocket and handed me back my credit card. I was shocked because I never gave it to him and I always carry it with me. How did you get my card? I asked in amusement. Well, we had to learn to survive somehow, Kyle said and smirked. You pickpocketed me. It was more a statement than a question and I couldn't help but laugh. Money doesn't bother me. I inherited my grandfather's companies and his money. That was the one thing my father couldn't take from me although he wanted to. Kyle, Zane. You do know that I pay you a generous salary, so you could have afforded this on your own and still have enough to buy a car if you wanted to. I said, looking as their faces turned pale with anticipation. And I couldn't help but laugh at them. I saw them visibly relax and a smile playing at their lips. So shall we get this party started? I asked and grabbed myself a beer. Zane POV Zanian found me and Kyle wandering in the woods near his office in the city. We left our pack when we discovered that our alpha had a thing for impregnating young girls with or without consent. He tried that with our sister but she got away and ran straight to us. She told us everything and the next morning we found her dead in her room, so Kyle and I left. We went rogue. Zanian saw us snooping around in the bins for food and begging on the street. At first he scared us, so we ran away and he came looking for us and found us in a small broken wooden cabin. He told us about the pack he started and offered to take us with him. At first, we were scared because he had power rolling off him, enough to bring a room to their knees. A year later, he offered us jobs at his company and we have stayed with him ever since. We saw the pack grow and we've never seen him be anything but friendly except when it's the night before a full moon, then he gets moody and rude. And on the full moon, he disappears only to come back the next morning looking like he walked through a silver hell barefoot. We are officially planning his birthday and he is yet again in his office. He never told anyone how the pack came into existence or his background. Not even what pack he is from. And we know not to push, but he has got to trust us even just a little. I stole his credit card when I pretended to walk into him in the hallway. Using the "I didn't watch where I was going" excuse. He laughed it off and kept on walking. Kyle and I did the shopping and we bought everything the liquor store had. The car was too small, so we hired a small truck and loaded everything. Then we went off food shopping. We wolves have a very high food tolerance and a very big appetite, especially after a run in wolf form. We bought about 7 trolleys of food and received weird glances from every human in the store. The 1 or 2 wolves we came across just smiled at us and kept walking. The cashier lady kept looking at us funny but didn't say anything. We had to be silent when we got home and everyone helped us offload and the females got started on cooking immediately. The nice thing about this pack is no one is above anyone and no one fights for a position. Everything is done through teamwork. But like every pack, you get that girl who doesn't do anything, that just wants the attention of the alpha, but unlike those packs, these she-wolves aren't about it. Although they don't do anything, they will still keep you company while you work. Zanan threatened to kill a she-wolf because she tried playing boss over the wolves here and tried getting into Zanan's pants. Needless to say, her attitude changed very suddenly and she is now one of the friendly ones. Kyle POV: I thought Zanan was going to rip out Zane's throat when he took out the credit card, but instead, Zanan just laughed. He helped himself to a beer and then looked at me. Kyle, are you not inviting your mate? I looked at him confused for a second and then I clicked. How can I forget that I have found my mate? I palmed my forehead and ran out of the kitchen. I found my mate a few days ago when I went for a run in the woods and at first I thought she was going to reject me because she comes from a pack and I am a rogue. But instead she burst into tears and ran straight into my arms. She cried for hours and eventually she calmed down. She was so exhausted from crying that she passed out. I took her home and stayed with her until she woke up. I'm sorry you had to see that, was the first thing she said to me. And then she explained why she cried and what happened. I found out that she was rejected by her mate and her family on the same day. She ran away, not knowing where to go or what to do. I told her about the pack and that Zanan is our alpha and she was just too happy to stay here with us. We haven't made it or marked each other yet because she hasn't shifted yet. She was supposed to shift the night of her rejection but her wolf was too weak. So she should be shifting soon. Opening the door to our room, I saw Lily sleeping. I sat down next to her and rubbed her back. Are you joining us for Zanan's party? I asked her and she jumped up startled and with eyes as big as saucers. She cursed before she jumped off the bed in search for clothes. Why didn't you wake me sooner, Kyle? Now I'm late. I said I would help with the cooking and decorations. I giggled at her and felt a slap on my shoulder. Looking up at her, I saw her pouting. You are allowed to sleep. Besides, Maggie said if I woke you, Zanan would have a part of me for dessert. That made her laugh and we went downstairs. When we got there, Zanan was taking one shot after the other. What is happening? I asked Adam. Zanan and Zane have to finish 100 shots and whoever wins first gets to pick the other's punishment. I looked over at Lily, who had a horrified expression on her face because, although she hasn't been here long, she know how bad it can get with Zanan and Zane. Zanan POV Zane challenged me to a drinking contest and said whomever wins can pick the punishment for the loser. I smirked at him and shook his hand. Adam poured our shots and counted them one by one to make sure they were 100 each. I was halfway through mine when I heard a low howl. But it sounded strange, almost broken. I stopped drinking and stood straight to listen. No one else seemed to have heard it because everyone was booing because I stopped. And then I heard it again and bolted for the door. Once outside, I stood and listened and I caught the scent of blood. I shifted and followed the scent. I caught the smell of multiple rogues and the smell of blood became strong. As I stepped into a small clearing I saw a small wolf covered in blood and rogues biting at it. I growled and every rogue looked at me. I looked back at the small grey wolf and charged at the rogues, snapping their necks and ripping at their flesh. My wolf easily took down all of them. I shifted back into my human form and crouched down next to the injured wolf, running my hand lightly over the fur. I asked, "Can you shift back?" Ice blue eyes landed on me and a whimper escaped the wolf. I raised my hands and said, "I'm here to help. Can you shift?" The wolf closed her eyes and I guess that was a no. I picked her up and carried her back to the pack house and to the small clinic. I wish I could mind link someone, but they are not my real pack, so I cannot mind link anyone and they cannot link me. I laid her down on the table and waited for Jeff. As soon as he came in, he looked at the scene and got to work hooking her onto machines and drips. He injected her something to force a shift and when she shifted I gasped at the sight of her body. Looking at her stunned, I whispered Delia, stroking her head softly, I half-mindedly asked. "What are you doing this side of the woods?" Jeff looked at me and asked me to please leave so that he could start working. I gave him a quick rundown of what happened and he got to work. I told Jeff to make sure she gets everything she needs and to call me when she wakes up. Zanan POV I've been pacing my office up and down since this morning. I swear you can see dents in the floor. It's been 2 weeks since I found Delia. Why would Delia be this side of the woods? It's hours away from my old pack and no one knows about this place. Is the same thing that has been running through my head ever since I found her in the woods, and she shifted. Shows you just how much I have missed out on. When we were little we always said that we would be there together when we first sift and we would always be best friends, even if we find our mates. But I guess that fate dealt us a cruel hand because I haven't seen her ever since I was thrown out of the pack. Remember what I have told you. Only a wolf knows and she shifted Zanan. So that is how she knows. But then everyone should know who has shifted Blaze. So that means anyone can come here. No they cannot, because a wolf can choose what or what not to share with his or her human. We have a mind of our own so we can hide things from humans. Besides, not every wolf wants the human to know about this place. And we are safe here as long as we just follow the rules and not do anything stupid. Zanan stood looking out of his office window at the home he had built and the good of it. Thinking about what Blaze had said, something just clicked in his mind. That is why you blocked me out. Because you didn't want me to see the path. Yes, and no Z. Besides, you know the path like the back of your hand now. I knew you would try and stop me if I told you where we were going. What aren't you telling me, Blaze? We ran past your old pack. The back of it, anyway, and I didn't want you to see how I killed them if they spotted us or started chasing us. I was quiet after that. So my old pack is not that far from here. There was a knock on the door and Zane stepped inside. Sorry to bother you, but Jeff said you'd wanted to know that the girl was awake. I ran out of the room. It's time to get some answers finally. Dalia POV. The last thing I remember is running away from my pack and then my wolf cut me off. I slowly opened my eyes and closed them because of the light. I tried again and blinked my eyes rapidly. Finally being able to see, I looked around me and saw that I was hooked up to a machine and a heart monitor. I have no idea where I am. Just then, the door opened and a tall handsome man came in. He had wavy black hair not too long, he has green eyes and he looked well built. Guess he is a healer not a fighter by the looks of his coat and clean hands. I wonder what his hands would feel like and if they are as soft as they look. What Dalia? Why am I thinking like this about a total stranger no less? I felt my cheeks heat up and saw him smiling at me, and took a step closer. I'm pretty sure I heard him growl at me before he said mate. He walked over to me and touched my cheek and it felt like 1,000 butterflies kissing me. Why can I not smell him? My heart started racing and he jumped back, looking at the machines and at me. You have to calm down, your body and wolf aren't healed fully, so please calm down. I looked at him and calmed down a bit, then asked, where am I and how did I get here? The room door burst open and the frame was filled with Zanan's body. I was so happy to see him that a tear slipped from my eyes and I whispered, Zanan. He gave me that slow sad smile and walked closer to me. He took my hand, which caused the other guy to growl a bit. Zanan looked at him and he was staring at our hands. You have got to be kidding me, Jeff. Zanan said and started laughing. Jeff turned red as he blushed. I didn't mean to Z. It just sort of slipped out. It's fine, but I do have to speak to your mate for a second please and then she is all yours. Jeff looked at us and then left the room. As soon as he was gone, I lifted myself up, ignoring the protest from my body. I threw my arms around his neck and started crying. I thought you were dead, I said, and he rubbed my back in slow circles. Zanan POV. I thought you were dead. I ignored that statement and just rubbed her back. When she was calm enough, I unhooked her arms from my neck and laid her back down, taking her hands in mine and squeezing them lightly. Seeing her face scrunch up from the pain, my heart broke even further. She looked at me and her once sparkling green eyes looked so dull and empty. I couldn't stop myself. What happened to you, Dalia? She looked away from me and then when she looked back all traces of her tears were gone and her eyes looked hard and cold. A look I know all too well. It almost made me shiver. She took a deep breath. Your brother became alpha when he turned 18 and everything in the pack changed, and I mean everything. He brought in more rules and a curfew, saying no wolf is allowed out after 11 o'clock at night except for border patrols and warriors. At first, no one understood why until we heard the news that some she-wolves has gone missing from the packs around us. We were attacked by an army of rogues that killed almost half the pack. They were like super wolves or something. Your father went to find out what they want and they are looking for a girl and you. I looked at her shocked. Why and would rogues be looking for me? We don't know what they want with you or the girl they are looking for. I think they said her name was Crystalia, but they made the message quite clear. They killed your mother and father and left Zack with a few scars. I have no idea who that is, Dalia. I've never even heard of that name. No, but you knew Leela. And I found something that I wish I hadn't. As soon as she mentioned that name my whole body went still and my heart started racing. I couldn't even form a single word, I just looked at her. Dalia POV. I looked at Zanan, taking a deep breath before I said, Leela knew you were her mate even before you knew. She was a silver wolf so she could hide her scent. She thought that it might save your life. But the day of your banishment, Zack told her to go to your father and he would let her leave with you. Zack sent her to her death knowing your father would never allow a traitor in the pack. I saw Zanian's expression change from shock to anger and then all I could see on his face was hatred and pain. He got up from the bed and left the room, ignoring my cries. If he is smart, he will let this go for now, but knowing him, he will never let it go. I never found my mate in my pack and I remember how much it hurt to be alone and not have a mate. I cannot imagine what Zanian is going through. Watching your mate die for no apparent reason can make any wolf crazy, and just before Zanian slaughtered every last member in that pack, he was shot with wolfsbane and taken away. I thought I would never have a chance to see my friend again. And now I don't know for how long I'll be seeing him. Zanian POV. As soon as I got outside, I shifted and ran. And I didn't stop running. They will pay for what they have done, and you are either helping me or you will wake up when all of this is over. What do you mean, Blaze? I am going to kill every last person who was involved in everything. Zack will be the first. He is the reason our mate is dead. Zanian. We need to think this through, Blaze. If we start a war, then we need to be sure. But what has that girl have to do with any of this? Have you ever heard that name before? No, I have not. Why would rogues be looking for us and her? We don't even know each other. I don't know, Blaze. We've been running for almost 3 hours and I could never get that name out of my head. Why is that name stuck in my head and why do I even care? We stopped at a small pond to take a break and to give my thoughts a rest. I am happy to see Delia again, but I wish she had never come here. I don't want her to see me like that or what I can do. I have grown cold and I can be heartless at times. I almost killed a she-wolf for leading me on and trying to touch me for God's sake. Because she was not our mate. I don't even think we have a second mate, Blaze, and do you really want to die alone? I will wait for her, Zanian, and if you cannot wait, then I will never come out again. Zane POV. Zanian has been having mood swings for the last 3 days, so I just left him alone and went over to Kyle and Lily. It is so unfair because he found his mate and I'm starting to think that I will never find mine. Even Jeff found his mate delivered to him on a hospital bed. And now he is so protective over her that almost no one can come close to her. They have marked each other but haven't mated yet. She is still too weak. We found out that she is Zanian's best friend and they come from the same pack. I tried asking her about Zanian but all she said was that he would tell his story when he is ready. So I just dropped the whole thing. She looks more affected by Zanian's mood swings than the rest of us. I bet it's because she knows what it is about. Zanian has never been this bad and this closed off. I mean, he is a very scary alpha and I don't ever want to be on his bad side. I hope that whatever is bothering him will change now that his friend is here. I was sitting and playing cards with Lily, Kyle, Jeff, and Delia when I heard Zanian shouting for me and he sounded impatient. I jumped up and I left. I found Zanian in his office staring out the window with a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked so far away that, for the first time, I took note of how tired and worn out he looked. I cleared my throat and he looked at me. He looked at me and said, "You know I would make you beta if I could, right?" I looked at him startled and shocked because he never spoke to me like that. I shook my head yes and said, "I know. And I am your beta, Zanian. We chose you as our alpha and the rules apply to you too. Together we stand and together we fight." He looked at me and smiled. He downed the last of his whiskey and said, "Well then it is time that I started trusting you, isn't it? Go and find Kyle and come back here." I never expected to hear those words from Zanian, but I did as he asked and left his office. Unknown POV. Finding them was easier said than done. I found Zanan and I found Crystalia a month ago wandering the woods feeling lost and alone. She couldn't remember where she was or how she got there. I took one look at her and my heart broke into a million pieces when I realized what they did with her. I took her by the arms and told her to follow me. I healed most of her wounds, but some of the scars will never go away. They must have injected her with silver and she died before she could heal, and with the silver in her body she will never heal completely. I worked with her and slowly brought back her memories of her previous life and what had happened to her. At first she didn't believe it, because if you die, there is no coming back. A few days later, she turned 20 years old and shifted. Only then could I tell her about who she was. But I didn't tell her everything. I did the same with Zanan. I planted the story of Odin in his mind, but a different version of the story to the one he was told as a kid. My job was to find them and make sure they found each other. Their strength together will be worth more than 1,000 rogues put together. When she was healed and ready to leave, I told her what to do and where to go from there. I also told her that she would see me again and to always be careful. I walked her back to her back borders and left her there. What she does from there on is up to her and her alone. Natasha POV. It's been almost a month since we buried Crystal and it has been hell ever since she died. It's like we have opened a portal to the ghost world. Hearing strange noises and someone speaking, but then there was no one there. Like yesterday when we came back from the mall, I could have sworn I smelled her in the house. But when I went to my room it was a complete mess. All my things were thrown onto the floor. No one was in here because I keep our door locked and the key is always with me. Lying in bed, I wish for just one good night's sleep, even for just a few hours. As I look over at Roland's sleeping form, he looks deep in a dream. Creases between his brows and his mouth is set in a hard line. The next moment he jumped up screaming, "Stop!" He looked around frightened and then sighed when he saw me. He sat back down on the bed and said, "We need to do something about this because we cannot go without sleep and my father is starting to suspect something. What do you suppose we do?" Before he could answer, we heard his father shout through the mind link so hard that we cringed at the sound. We got up and got dressed and headed downstairs. The first thing that caught my attention was Crystal's bedroom door being open. And it has never been opened before. I grabbed Roland's arm and pointed towards the door. He stiffened but kept walking, not looking at me. Roland POV. If this is what hell feels like, then I don't think I ever want to go there. None of us are sleeping or eating. We are barely in shape to train and I've given up on trying to keep my father off our backs. I just never thought he would find out so soon. When I woke up this morning, I went over the dream, the same one I have been having ever since we closed the hole Crystal was thrown into. My wolf cut me off completely and I am basically a human now. When my father shouted over his mind, I knew something was up, so down to his office we went. I felt Natasha pulling on my arm and pointing at something ahead. When I looked up and saw the open door, my heart sank and fear crept in. That door has never been opened. So why is Crystal's bedroom door now open? As I looked at the door my heart sank further, remembering what we had done. I know I hated her, but I never thought I would feel this empty with her being gone. I wish I could see her again ever for just 1 second. As I walked past the door, my wolf stirred and I felt so happy because he was back. Wait. What? He is back. I smell our mate. He said and started whimpering like a lovesick puppy. I abandoned Natasha in the hall and ran to my father's office. The scent of lavender and rain covered my father's office. I looked around to where the smell was coming from and my eyes landed on the most beautiful girl I have ever seen. Crystal POV. It's been almost a month since I've been home and I have no desire to go back after what has been done to me. But I have to go back and explain to Alpha Rodney why I haven't been making him toasted cheese. The one thing that Roland and them never knew was that I have a close relationship with Alpha Rodney and Luna May. My father was his first beta and best friend. When my mother died, everyone blamed me, but they never did, because they knew me better than everyone and they knew that I loved my mother even if she wasn't my biological mother. After my father died, Alpha Rodney and Luna May kind of took me in and treated me like their daughter. And for that I will always be grateful. I've never even told them that Roland rejected me, not even about the torture I had to endure ever since my 16th birthday. But I am not that scared little girl anymore and I won't say anything to the Alpha about what they did. It is now their own ghosts they need to fight and their reaction will say a lot. When I crawled out of that hole alone and scared and cold, I didn't even know where I was. All I knew was I was not dead, and then my questions started. I wandered the woods for a few days before a woman found me, clothed me, fed me, and healed me. I shifted a few days later and everything changed for me. I know who I am now and where I have to go. She told me about this pack where I would be welcomed and needed in the future. I made my way to Rodney's office to go and speak to him. As I was walking I felt stares and a lot of them. I died and came back to life and then I shifted so I don't look the same. Before I died, I had black hair and green eyes. I was confused as well until it was explained to me and now I don't want to change. I knocked on the door and I heard a strong voice saying come in. I pushed open the door and stood there looking at Alpha Rodney with tears in my eyes. He looked up at me and I saw his expression change from gentle to hard and then to shock. Alpha Rodney, it's really good to see you again. I missed you, I said and walked around his desk to give him a hug and hug me. He did. I actually heard my back creak. I let the tears flow freely because I am about to lie to the man that practically raised me from the age of 16. Rodney POV. She has been gone a long time, almost a month now, and no one has seen her or heard from her. The last time I saw her I told her to get more sleep. I will never forget how she looked that morning, dark circles under her eyes, and eyes that looked like the eyes of a dead person. I just hope she is okay, May said, looking out the window. May had been worried sick, because she had never done this before. We knew things weren't easy after her parents died and we tried to make her feel at home and feel loved, but then one day something just changed and she has never been the same after that. I'm sure she is fine. She is stronger than she knows. I've had my hands full with Natasha, Roland, Tony, and Danny. They look like walking dead, not sleeping, not eating, and now they can't even train properly. I asked them what had gotten into them and they all said the same thing, too much video games and popcorn. I let it go at that and didn't ask again. I was sitting in my office when I received a mind link from my beta telling me that there was a girl on her way to see me. She didn't give a name, just said she would like to speak to you. We gave her directions and she walked off. So I just sat there waiting for this girl. I heard the knock and said come in. At first I didn't know who it was and then I smelled that faint scent of rain and sunshine. I knew that it was Crystal. I saw her looking at me with tears as she made her way closer to me and then held her arms out for a hug. I got up and hugged her for dear life. Rubbing her hair and whispering, "Where have you been?" She sniffed and let go of me. She wiped her eyes and just looked at me. Then she cleared her throat and said I had to leave. There was something I needed to do and I have to go back. So I came to say goodbye. I stared at her stunned and heartbroken. She just got back and now she is leaving again. What do you mean? And how come you have changed so much? She smiled and said, I'm going to help a pack be a pack. I know it doesn't make sense but it will soon. She was quiet and then she looked at me and said I shifted, that is why I changed so much. And I also found out what I have to do and where I have to go. Crystal POV. I watched as Rodney's expression changed from shocked to confused, and this was not going as I'd hoped. I just came back because where I'm going I need to sever all ties with my pack. I have to go rogue. I watched him take in a deep breath and then he shook his head. So what are you going to do? You cannot leave your pack, see? We are family and we will always be. I heard the sadness in his voice so I had an opportunity to let this go smoothly. I don't have anything here anymore, Rodney. All I have is sad memories and a broken soul. I don't even have a mate. He took one look at me and decided he didn't want me. So I want a fresh start and a chance to find happiness like you have with May. I want that. He looked at me and said, you found your mate and he didn't want you? Who is he? I have to give him a piece of my mind. So who is he? It was Roland. We found out months ago after my 18th birthday, but like I said, I was rejected and now I have to accept it because he already has another mate and I don't want him as my mate after what he has done. I realized I have said too much when Rodney looked at me with questions swimming in his eyes. His eyes glazed over and I knew he was linking Roland. Let the fun begin. I waited with Rodney after he said Roland and Natasha were on their way. I took a deep breath and sat down. When the door opened, Roland came in with a rush and looked around frantically. When his eyes landed on me they looked warm and soft and so full of love, but that will all change when he finds out who I am. Rodney looked at Roland and sighed and let his head fall. Natasha's eyes fell on me and she sneered and looked away. They don't know who you are, my wolf said. Roland thinks you are his second chance mate and Natasha just hates you for the way Roland is looking at you. I nodded my head and then, when I looked up, Roland was looking at me and said mate. That one small word caused the room to fall silent and Rodney to look at me sideways. Roland was making his way over to me when I jumped up and teleported myself behind Rodney. Their eyes nearly popped out of their skulls and Roland just smiled. Well, I'm not even going to ask because I don't want to know. But I will introduce you to them. Crystal, I'm sure you know Roland and Natasha. Rodney looked at me and smirked as he said that. But when he saw the change in Natasha and Roland's faces, it caused red flags. They both went as white as sheets and they looked near passing out. I cleared my throat and said I won't be staying long, I just came to get my things and then leave. I looked at Roland and said I Crystalia Stone accept your rejection Alpha Roland Green. I watched as he clutched his chest and fell to his knees as the pain spread through him from the break of a mate bond. I looked at Natasha and said you really do look good together and, besides, who wants your kind of hell? I said with a smile on my face and she knew exactly what I was talking about. I said goodbye and I left. I went to pack my things and found Luna May standing in the hallway with tears in her eyes. I dropped my bags and gave her one last hug. I will come and visit, I promise, and when I'm settled in I will call you. She nodded her head and I walked off to find Rodney. I said goodbye and thank you and then I left. At the border, I severed my bond with the pack and heard a lot of sad howls. Everyone is feeling the pain of a pack bond breaking. I put my bag on my back and shifted into my wolf. Her name is Raven. She is a snow-white wolf with a black raven on her right shoulder. That resembles freedom. We are the first white wolf in almost 2,000 years. But my wolf is special. We have a fox as well. She and my wolf are one, but with a split personality. Raven's one eye is blue-green and the other is purple. My fox side has 9 lives, that is how I survived, and my wolf has abilities like teleportation and speed as well as strength. And she is huge, almost 8 feet tall standing. Okay, I know where we have to go and I will take us there. But we are running. Okay Raven, just get us there in one piece please. No problem. But I'm going to have to block you out though, because this is a wolf secret. Really? I mean we already share one body, so why can't you just tell me? Because it's a wolf's secret, and once you are there you will, anyway, learn the path because that will be our new home. Now trust me to get us there safe and enjoy the nap. We set off running tomorrow. This time we will be where we are meant to be. Dalia POV I have no idea what Zanan, Tyler and Zane are doing but they have been in that office for the last 4 hours now. I'm busy in the kitchen helping Maggie to cook dinner. Maggie spoke to me about herself and told me where she came from and how she ended up here. And I felt sad for her because her husband died and her kids disowned her when they found their mates, saying they didn't need a mother anymore, and when the pack got brutally attacked by rogues she left. The odds of surviving on her own were higher than belonging to a pack. I asked her about the rogue attack and asked if they were looking for something. She looked at me funny but then said they are looking for a girl but didn't give a name that I know of. I nodded my head and dropped the subject. Whoever this girl is, she is popular amongst rogues. And powerful ones at that. I wonder who she is. And why are they trying to find her so badly? We served dinner and called everyone just to hear "we'll eat later" from Zanian's office. I kept walking and went to find Jeff. He has been the best mate anyone could ask for and now I know why having a mate is the best thing in the world. We've marked each other but haven't mated yet as I am shy and afraid because there is no going back after that. Not that I want to, but it's a thought that never leaves my mind. What are you thinking about so hard? Jeff asked and smoothed the lines between my brows with his finger. I smiled at him and took his hand in mine, pulling him towards the dining hall. Dinner is ready. And we are late. Zanian POV we've been in my office for the last 4.5 hours now and I'm beginning to feel edgy and grumpy. I have told Zane and Kyle everything about me and what has been happening. I even told them about what happens on a full moon. At first I thought I had killed them. That's how quiet they have been throughout all this, but when I looked at them they were watching me and hanging on to every word I said. I stood there looking out of the window feeling my wolf grow impatient. What is wrong with you? You are driving me insane. I don't know, I just feel something. Can we go for a run? Maybe that would help. If you haven't noticed but I am in the middle of something and can't leave now. Blaze growled at me and went quiet. I began feeling very irritated and looked over at Zane who was looking at me funny. Are you okay? You don't look so good, Kyle said and looked over at Zane. I excused myself and walked out of the office. I started stripping when I got outside and took off running towards the woods. Blaze was panting and we hadn't even run that far yet or at full speed. I don't know what is happening. Blaze, you have to get yourself under control before you do something you will regret. Something is coming. It was the last thing he said before he started sniffing the air. He took off running following a faint scent of fresh rain and bubblegum. The scent became stronger and stronger the closer we got to the pack. Whoever left that scent must be in the pack. Crystal POV we have been running for what feels like forever. We even slept in the woods so that Raven could take a break. I have no idea where we are going or how far we still have to go, but one thing is for sure. She cannot wait to get there. The closer we got, the more agitated she got and the faster she started running. I tried talking to her but she has blocked me out again. I can feel her moods changing as she is running and I have no idea why. Eventually, she slowed down and then came to a stop. Taking down the wall, she said I think it's best if they don't see me, not yet anyway. So we need to shift back and speak to whoever is in charge of this pack. It's a pack of rogues, but don't go on defense and be nice. I've never heard my wolf speak like this, and I thought she would be more proud. I did what she said and shifted behind a tree getting dressed. As soon as I was done, I stood by the tree where someone could easily spot me. Zane POV. When Zanan told us his story, we weren't sure what to say or do because he near brought me to tears with that story. At least now we know why he can be so cold sometimes and why he always disappears on a full moon. We were still talking when his whole mood changed and he stood frozen by the window. I looked over at Kyle and he just shrugged his shoulders. I called Zanan by name and got no reaction. He must be talking to his wolf, but by the looks of it, it's not going well. The next moment he just walks out without a word. Kyle and I got up to leave. Halfway down the hallway my stomach grumbled and I only then realized how hungry I was. I looked over at Kyle who was laughing at me. "Come on, let's go and get you food, and me too," he said and pulled me downstairs. When we got to the dining hall, everyone was quiet. "I need food please," I said and laughter erupted among the wolves. Delia got up and started dishing out 3 generous plates of delicious-smelling food. "Zanan is not coming. He took off," Kyle said and shrugged his shoulders. Delia sighed and only dished 2. I looked through the window and something caught my eye. I tapped Kyle's shoulder. "Hey, do you see that there?" I asked, and pointed my finger in that direction. "We wolves have excellent eyesight, but that is far out." "It's a girl," Kyle said, and we excused ourselves and walked out. The closer we got, the more breathtaking she became. Her long silver hair swaying with the wind, her features as delicate as those of a fairy, but they looked strong. High cheekbones and she looks perfectly tanned. Not as white as most of the wolves here. It's a shame we can't see her body because her shirt looks 2 sizes too big, but she looks perfect. We stopped in front of her and asked, "Who are you?" She looked at us and a smile broke onto her face. I swear the wind was just knocked out of me. "I'm here to speak to whoever is in charge please." Her voice sounds like a melody I can listen to forever. "He's not here but you can speak to us," Kyle said. And, of course, he is unaffected by her because he has already found his mate. She smiled and said, "I'm here to ask permission to become part of this pack. My wolf told me about this place." Crystal POV. I saw their expression change from friendliness to caution. "I will wait here if you cannot give me permission. I'll just wait for anyone who can." I went quiet as I heard paws a few miles out. I inhaled deeply and realized rogues were on the way. Dangerous smelly rogues. Raven stirred at the back of my mind and I thought maybe I could prove myself. "You know rogues are coming." They both stiffened and looked at me wide-eyed. Normal wolves cannot smell or hear that far out. I formed an O in realization. And waited. There are about 5. When they got close enough to smell, growls ripped from their throats. "Mind if I help?" I asked and just received 2 weird looks in return because I said that smiling. "Can you even fight?" "Not to be rude, but you don't look like the fighting kind," the tall blonde one said. I took offense and stood ready to fight and show them just how good I am. I've been receiving brutal training since the age of 5. And became the best at the age of 12. I gave a mental smirk and laid eyes on the rogues. They were snarling and their mouths had fresh blood on them. I moved forward and ignored the warning from the blonde guy. I thought to myself. Standing eye to eye with a snarling rogue was never my plan for the day. The rogue jumped and I caught it by the throat and ripped it out with one hand and dropped it on the floor. Looking at my hand, I felt my eyes change. Looking at the rogues with a death stare, they retreated before attacking full force and I made quick work of them, except one. I broke all 4 of his legs and commanded him to shift. Painful howls ripped through the sky and he shifted. "Why are you here?" I asked. "We are looking for someone. A girl. Do you have a name?" He looked at me and then said Crystalia. I went stiff and just looked at the rogue. "Do you know what she looks like?" I asked, knowing the answer. "No, word has it she died and changed. So we are looking." I put my hands around the rogue's throat and crushed it, watching him die slowly and painfully. "Why would rogues be looking for me? Not just you. They are looking for 2 wolves." "How do you know?" "While you were fighting, I looked into their memories, but I cannot see who gave the command." I cut off when I felt a tap on my shoulder and swung around. Kyle POV. "Okay, I am officially crept out." First, Zanan shares his past and now this total stranger just fought and killed 5 rogues while in human form, and that's not even the worst part. She commanded the rogue to shift and it did, and the power that rolled off her was equal to the power of Zanan. I just wish I could see what she did that made the rogues retreat and then attack. Zane and I wanted to help, but she looked like she had everything under control. I shouldn't have said what I did because she is one hell of a fighter. I mean, she caught a wolf in midair and didn't even flinch. She left one rogue alive and questioned him before she crushed his windpipe. Why would they be looking for a girl? Do you think it could be the same girl Delia told Zanan about? I asked Zane. He shrugged his shoulders and I walked over to the girl who had been standing frozen in her spot. I tapped her shoulder and she spun around so fast I almost had a heart attack. I jumped back. "Jesus! You scared me," I said and saw her looking at me. "I scared you? Didn't you see I was busy?" I gaped at her open-mouthed and just shook my head. "This one is stubborn." "I think Zanan is back," Kyle said. Crystal POV. Zanan. Why does that name sound so familiar? Realization hit me and I said Zanan, black as in the Zanan. I asked and received weird stares. "Yes," said the brown-haired one. But it came out like an uncertainty. "We are where we're supposed to be." I stretched out my hand and introduced myself. "I'm Christy Stone and you are?" They looked at me and the dirty brown-haired one's name is Zane and the blonde one is Kyle and they are brothers. They grabbed my bags and showed me to Zanan's office. He is the alpha here. The house is huge and I've seen a lot of wolves, most of them staring at me with envy and lust and then some she-wolves with jealousy, which is normal. I tied my hair into a ponytail and climbed up the stairs. I couldn't help but envy the decor of the house. It's done so perfectly and it looks like the theme in the house is oak. The colors are golden, white and green. As we reached the top floor, my wolf started stirring and her tail started wagging. "What, Raven? Our mate is here." "Wait, what? Did you say mate?" She rolled her eyes at me and said, "Smell the air." I did and the smell of chocolate and fresh apples hit my nose. It's the same smell we picked up in the woods. The smell got more intense the closer we got to the door. Kyle stopped me and said, "Just wait here." And then they went in, leaving me standing in the hallway. A few minutes later they came out looking at me with sympathy. Zane looked at me with a small smile and said good luck. Zanan POV. The run and that smell in the woods did nothing to calm my wolf, and now I'm starting to get irritated. Having your wolf feeling agitated is like having an itch you cannot scratch. It is what drives most wolves crazy, they eventually just give in and let their wolf take over, but I refuse to do that. When I got home, the sun was low in the sky and it was too hot for my liking. The next thing I do on this ground is build an enormous swimming pool. I said to myself while standing and staring out of my office window. Zane and Kyle came in and I smelled it again. I walked closer to them and asked them, "Why do you smell like fresh rain and bubblegum?" They just looked at me and filled me in on what happened while I was out. They told me about the girl and the rogues and how she handled them single-handedly. When they were done, I was left speechless. I've never heard of a wolf with that kind of strength except for me. Are you sure you weren't dreaming? I asked them, because it sounded like they were. Well, she is standing outside your office, so it wasn't a dream, Zane said, and I stiffened. I excused them and told them to send her in. I turned towards the window and my mind started chasing old ghosts. If this is what I think it is, I'm not sure if I want another mate, because if I lose her then I will not survive this time. You will not reject her, Zanan. I won't, Blaze, but I'm not going to accept her either. I will give you some time and if you don't, then I will. And with that he blocked me off. I gave a sigh and rubbed my hands over my face. What am I going to do? The smell wrapped around me like a blanket, refusing to let go. I turned around. When my eyes landed on the silver-haired beauty standing in front of me, all my words were lost and the desire to take her and claim her overwhelmed me. What are you doing, Zanan? I reprimanded myself and shook my head. As if that will get the images out, I scoffed at myself. I cleared my throat and motioned for her to sit down. I saw a small smile playing at her lips and I could feel Blaze stirring in my head. Crystal POV. When I walked into the office, I was greeted with a very good-looking back. In a white vest that looked too small for his muscles, I could see every muscle on his back and the outline of a tattoo. I squeezed my knees together and just kept staring at the magnificent back. He has perfect black hair, that is just long enough to have a good pulling advantage, and he is tall. I've seen tall gorgeous men before, but none was ever this knees-weakening hot. What am I thinking? He turned around and I looked into the kind of eyes I could get lost in. They were so green and clear that I decided it would be my new favorite color. He cleared his throat and motioned for me to sit and I did. His voice is so deep and manly and I know that voice holds power. I took a seat opposite him and we just stared at each other. He finally broke the silence. Zane told me about the rogues and how you fought them. Where are you from? I smiled at him, my wolf feeling proud about being seen, and I heard him inhale sharply. Yes, I have, and I also got some information. I come from the Greyville Stone Pack. My name is Christy Stone. I got stuck for a second because I have never had to lie about my name or, let alone make one up. I don't want them to know who I am, not yet and not until I know why. That woman did say I should be careful. I looked at Zanan and he was just staring at me. The Greyville Stone Pack. They never throw anyone out and never did, so why are you rogue? And what did you do to be thrown out? I looked at him half angry. He knows nothing about me and yet here he is judging me and thinking the worst. Don't agitate him, see, he doesn't have a good temper record. My wolf informed me and I cleared my throat. I leaned forward and said, I wasn't thrown out, I left. I always felt like I belonged somewhere else. It wasn't a complete lie, just not the whole truth. He narrowed his eyes at me and said, so you left your pack to come here? Well, yes and no. I met a woman that told me about this pack and here I am. A woman, hey? Well, if that is what you are sticking with, then be my guest. You can stay, but there are rules. Follow them and you can stay as long as you want, break them and you will find yourself homeless. I listened to what he was saying and the way he was speaking he wasn't even acknowledging the mate pull and my heart started breaking again, but I refused to give anything away and kept a blank face. The rules are basically the same as a normal pack, just with a bit more freedom. You will stay here on the top floor, because there isn't space anywhere else, he said in a stern voice, leaving no space for an argument. I have a question, I said, and looked at him. Do you give any training? He looked at me and said, yes, there is training and you are welcome to join in if you want to. I smiled my $1,000,000 smile at him. Great, some new competition if there is any. I refused to break in front of him and I could feel my wolf's sadness. Well, here we go again with this stupid heart and hopes of mine. Dalia POV. I was on my way to Zanian's office when Zane stopped me and told me I did not want to be there now. I looked at them and asked why not. They ignored me and I just walked past them. Walking into Zanian's office, I was greeted with a very bright smile. Dalia, meet Christy, she is joining our pack. I looked at the girl and my breath hitched. Wow, you are beautiful. I said before I could think. I mean, she makes my fair skin and dirty blonde hair ashamed, but I happen to love myself. Thank you, and you are beautiful too, she said in a perfectly smooth voice with a bright smile. I looked over at Zanian and he was gripping the table so hard his knuckles were turning white. Zanian, your food is in the oven. I'm going to bed. I bent down and kissed his cheek. He grabbed my wrist and asked me to take Christy to her room. He explained where her room would be and I asked her to follow me. When I looked at her again she looked sad, so I looked again and it was gone. Her room is across from Zanian's, which is not weird because there is no more space and now Zanian won't be alone. He has been worrying me lately with his moods and the cold shoulder he has been giving most of the she-wolves here. He needs a mate. I opened the door and the room was absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. The room is decorated with gold and white with a 4-poster queen-sized bed standing in the middle of the room against the wall. Christy put her bags down and turned to look at me. Thanks, Dalia. Can I ask you a favor? Sure, what is it? Can you please show me the kitchen? I slapped my forehead and cursed myself. You must be hungry. I am so sorry. I'm not actually, I just need something to drink. Crystal POV. I really am not hungry, just thirsty, besides it is too early for bed. Dalia took my arm and pulled me out of the room towards the stairs. The kitchen was huge and stocked with everything. I grabbed a cup and made some hot chocolate and offered it, but no one wanted any. It's sad, because I can make a mean up of hot chocolate. I said and just received looks from Zane and Kyle. I took a sip and moaned as the flavor hit my tongue. I can't remember the last time I had some that tasted this good. Zane looked at me and then my cup and before I could stop him, he grabbed my cup and downed my hot chocolate. Hey, that was mine. I said with a pout. Well, the way you moaned at the taste, I thought I would love some, and making some just seemed like a lot of work, but you were right, that was one good cup. Dalia smacked him on the back of the head and that made me laugh. I just wish I could stop thinking because it made me think of Natasha and Tony before the abuse started. Hey, are you okay? Dalia asked and I just nodded my head. I'm just gonna make another one, and I ask again, does anyone else want? Yes, 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 and yes. Came all the replies and then I heard, yes please. And I looked up, catching sight of those beautiful green eyes. Zanian was leaning against the wall watching what I was doing. I ended up making more than 10 cups and started handing them out. I gave Zanian his and he left without even saying thank you. My heart sank, but I shook it off and grabbed my cup. Well, the sun is down and so am I. Dalia said and took 2 cups of hot chocolate with her. Good night, everyone shouted. I made my way outside and sat down on the grass with my hot chocolate. My mind drifted to yesterday and it seems like a lifetime ago. Letting go, I opened all my senses and listened to the world around me. Looking through my wolf's eyes, the whole world lit up like a spotlight shining down from the heavens. I can see everything, hear everything, and smell everything. Do you think he will want us in time? I don't know, I hope he does. I lay flat on my back and looked up at the stars, something I hadn't done in years. It looks like billions of fireflies through the eyes of my wolf. Unknown POV, where can she be? I have searched every pack and killed more wolves than I'd like to, but a message has to be sent. How can no one know where she is? Not even her own pack knows where she is, and the same with his pack. Where can they be? I found a kid in the woods talking to himself. Sneaking up to him was easy and I injected him with a paralyzer and truth serum. I waited and then started asking questions. He is the soon-to-be alpha of the Greyville Stone Pack and I started asking him questions about Crystalia. She goes by the name of Crystal. I also found out why I cannot find her. She changed. She must have shifted. When a female fox shifts for the first time, they change physically into the figure that best suits their personality. She is not just a fox, she is something special and so is he. They are weapons created by me. Together they are stronger than 1,000 wolves put together. I need them if I am to avenge my mate and child and the daughter that was so brutally taken from me. I need to make my search wider and I need more wolves. Find her, and do not disappoint me. I opened the cage and set my latest test subject free. I watched as he took off like the beast he is, one I have created. I just hope he lasts long enough. Why, what do you mean? Well, his blood work shows signs of brain cells dying, it looks like his body is fighting the serum. He will die within a week. Let's hope he finds her, then shall we? Find me another subject and get it started. Zanan POV, she would fit right in with the sounds of laughter coming from the kitchen. I made my way down just in time to hear her asking about hot chocolate. And that being my favorite drink, I couldn't resist so I said yes. That was a better reply than I wanted to give. If I cannot reject her, then I will push her to reject me that way. It was her choice and I will know that I deserved it. I looked at her as she was handing me my cup and walked off without a word. Standing in my office, I thought of a plan on how to get her to reject me and the perfect plan formed. One I will regret for the rest of my life. I put down the cup and walked into the living room, calling one of the slutty she-wolves. I took her up to my bedroom opposite Christie's and closed the door. I need relief, this is nothing more. Do I make myself clear? I said and watched as she nodded her head and started stripping. I walked over to her and grabbed a fistful of her dirty blonde hair. Why will I not get hard? I asked myself as I kissed Natalie. She melted like putty in my hands and pressed her body against mine, letting her hand wander. I conjured up images of Christy and felt getting harder by the second. I heard Natalie moan as she traced the outline of my crotch with her hand. She broke the kiss and looked at me and then looked down, smiling a satisfying smile. Blaze was clawing at the back of my mind, but I kept the wall up. I moved her hair out of the way and watched as she started working. Crystal POV, I must have fallen asleep because I woke up with a burning sensation in my heart. I pushed myself up from the grass and failed to stand up. I clutched my heart as tears ran down my cheeks. I know this feeling all too well. Our mate is cheating on us, Wolf said, and I could feel her pain spreading through my body. I forced myself off the ground and made my way inside and up to my room. Looking at the room opposite mine, I could hear moans and screams. I walked into my room and shut the door. The minute my head touched the pillow my body gave in to the pain and I fell asleep crying. The next morning, I woke up with a broken heart and a heavy soul. I walked over to the bathroom and stripped for a shower. What am I doing here? I looked at myself in the mirror tracing the scars with my finger on my chest. I turned around and looked at my back and the scars were still there. Sometimes I wish I could wake up and they would all be gone, erasing my past with them. Wishful thinking, right? I took a shower and got dressed in simple shorts and a black vest. One that hides my scars. I will not let Zanan see that he affected me. He said I could do training and so I would. I opened my door and stared at the room opposite mine again. I shook my head and pulled myself together. Walking down the hallway with my head held high, I greet everyone I pass and make my way into the kitchen. I grabbed something to eat and made some small talk, then excused myself to warm up for training. There were already a lot of wolves on the field and I joined them in warming up. 3 laps around the border, the first one back gets to choose their sparring partner. The trainer said and I received some looks my way and took off running. I was first when I heard footsteps behind me and smelled him before I saw him. I started running faster and it looked like he was catching up and he started running at full speed, leaving him behind. I reached the training ground first with Zanan a few meters behind me. I smiled a smug smile at myself and looked at the trainer who was looking at me shocked, but said nothing. He looked at his watch and raised a brow at me. Third-person POV as Zanan and Crystal sat waiting for the others, Zanan kept looking at her and when she looked, he looked away. When she lifted her head again she looked into those green eyes and smiled at him. He just narrowed his eyes at her. Everyone started coming back panting and breathing heavily. Zane looked at me and then Zanan and just smiled. "Okay, is everyone back?" the trainer asked and received a lot of yes. "Okay, since Christy won, she gets to choose her sparring partner for today." I saw Zane and Kyle's mouths hanging open and stood up looking at everyone. I knew that none of them would be a match for me, so I looked at Zanan and said, "I choose Zanan as my partner for today." Zanan looked at her and smirked. He got up from the ground and every wolf moved out of the way. "Are you sure about this? You can pick anyone else. If she wants to spar with me, then leave her, Tommy." Crystal looked around and shrugged her shoulders. She moved into the circle and waited for Zanan. "The rules are, no shifting, no dirty tricks, and if your opponent raises his or her right hand the fight stops immediately." They nodded and then shook hands standing opposite each other in a fighting stance. Zanan smirked and signaled Crystal to start. She moved closer, reaching out to punch him, but kicked his legs out from under him instead. She watched as he went down and landed with an oomph, causing some wolves to gasp. He got up quickly and he looked angry. He threw one punch after the other and Crystal dodged all of them. He threw another left punch but hit right instead, hitting Crystal straight in the jaw and heard a creak. She grabbed her jaw and straightened it, and spit out the blood in front of Zanan, who had a smug smile on his face. "He is enjoying this and a little too much." Zanan looked at her and took a fighting stance again and this time Crystal had no reason to hold back. "He enjoys hitting her in front of everyone, trying to shame her. Or proving a point that he doesn't want you." Crystal hit him blow after blow after blow, using her full speed and strength. He dodged some of them but not all of them. Watching him groan in pain was satisfying for her. She threw him an uppercut and watched him falling a few feet away. Looking down on him, she actually feels sorry for him, looking at his bruised face and split lip that is already healing. He looked at her and swung his legs trying to trip her, but she jumped over him and stood behind him as he struggled to his feet. "All you have to do, Zanan, is admit defeat and call it a day." He looked at her and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Never, so why don't you give up? He asked and was now glaring at her. She shook her head and took a fighting stance. He ran towards her and she dodged him, jumping on his back, gripping him in a chokehold from behind and squeezed. She felt his breathing slow as he was ripping at her arms and trying to throw her off, but failed. He fell backwards, landing directly on top of her, but she didn't let go. She wrapped her legs around his ribs and stomach and started squeezing. She heard a satisfying crack and then he passed out. She let go of him and threw him off her. Tommy gave her a hand and helped her up and the whole crowd was silent. Tommy looked at her and smiled a satisfied smile. Zane POV. When Christy said she wanted to fight Zanan, the breath got knocked out of me, because no one ever goes up against him. Not unless they feel like being in pain and visiting the doctor's office. As the fight began, I held my breath, but seeing her smug smile I felt bad for her. That was until Zanan landed on him and I knew she got that. When Zanan dislocated her jaw, something in her eyes changed, like she had just switched off. Every emotion was gone. She wasn't sparring anymore, she was fighting. Zanan barely dodged her blows. He took a few knocks that were going to leave a mark and then he went down. Looking at Christy, she doesn't even look tired or bothered by the fact that this is the second time Zanan has been down. The way Zanan fell back was enough impact to loosen her arms but she didn't, she held him in a lock. And then she threw her legs around him and we all heard a creak. I knew it wasn't his neck and then I looked at her legs. She broke his ribs with her legs, I thought, feeling as shocked as everyone else looked. Remind me never to get between her legs. I whispered over at Kyle whose eyes were glued to the scene. Zanan passed out and Christy won. Wait, what? Christy won? How in had she managed that? Everyone stared at her open-mouthed as she threw Zanan's body off hers. Tommy announced that she had won and Zanan was taken to the hospital. Man, he's going to be pissed when he wakes up from that hospital. Christy dusted herself off and came to stand beside me. I swallowed and looked around. Wow, you are a great fighter. I said and looked at her. Thank you, he needed a dent in his ego a bit. She said and smiled at me. Do you know what you have done? You humiliated him in front of everyone, he is not just going to let this go, you know. I know, and I wouldn't want him to, besides competition is always good for me, it keeps me on my toes. I watched as she walked off and just shook my head. This could be a very interesting day, a month, or even years. Everyone knows Zanan has a temper and he doesn't like losing, especially not against a girl. Never have I ever imagined someone would put Zanan down on him and here a girl did it that literally came out of nowhere, took down rogues and now Zanan. Man, who is this girl? I asked myself. Crystal POV. I never knew that kicking your mate could be this satisfying until now. And this is just the beginning of what I will do to him for hurting me the way he did and most probably will again. I shielded my heart and prepared my mind and my wolf for what is to come and I will do what I have to. I walked off to the hospital to see how he was doing, I'm cold but not heartless. As I walked in, Delia greeted me in the hallway looking angry or trying to be, I don't know. You broke 3 of his ribs, fractured his jaw and you beat him black and blue. I looked at her not knowing what to say and just said, he was my sparring partner and I gave him the choice to concede and he didn't want to. So instead you beat him up. Nope, I didn't. I just dented his ego. I said and laughed at her expression. As hard as she was trying, she couldn't keep the laugh in anymore and just burst out laughing. You know, ever since I can remember, I have never met someone who has ever beaten up Zanan and walked away without a scratch. Delia said and looked at me as if realizing something. OMG, you don't even have a scratch on you. I came to make sure I put my jaw back in the right way because it's still paining, even worse when I talk. I said and rubbed my jaw. She took me by the arm and showed me the way to the doc's office. His name is Jeff and he is my mate. Delia said out of the blue, which made me smile. I looked at her and said, I'm very happy for you, and thank you for coming with me. Jeff was nice with his wavy black hair and green eyes. He checked my jaw and made me bite on a piece of hard plastic as hard as I could. Just before I wanted to scream out in pain, I heard a pop and it didn't hurt anymore. I looked at him and smiled. Thanks Doc, I said and asked if I could see Zanan. He gave me directions and off I went. Standing outside the door, I heard two voices and walked in without knocking. When I looked up, I saw a girl sitting on his bed holding his hand while he was speaking to her softly. I walked in and his eyes landed on me. They looked cold and void of any emotion. I looked at the girl and Zanan let go of her hand, sitting up. He didn't even groan in pain and just said, "What are you doing here?" "I just came to see how you are doing." "Why, so that you can gloat?" "Thanks, but you know the way out." "No, actually, because I know how you must feel. So I came to check on you." He looked at me and scoffed. "What do you know? You had a perfect life, right? I mean, look at you. What do you know about having to fight?" I looked at him and every word he said was like a blow to my heart. I heard footsteps behind me and felt a hand on my back which made me stiffen. I looked to my left and Jeff was there with Delia on my right with her hand on my back. I just stood there. "Hey, are you okay?" Jeff asked, and I looked up at him. "Yes, I'm fine." "Ah, and I think you fixed him wrong," I said and left the room just to hear laughter and a loud growl. Zanan POV. When I woke up in the hospital, everything that happened came back to me and how I had lost to a girl. A girl of all things. I moved around but then felt the sting in my sides and lifted up my shirt. She broke my ribs with her legs. How and did I let that happen? Falling backwards was supposed to throw her off, not land me in the hospital. And running with her was sort of amazing. I mean, I couldn't even catch up with her. And her speed and strength matches mine, if not a bit more. She will get what she deserves for what she has done. Humiliating me in front of everyone is never a good thing and I'm an alpha. For me it's worse. I was lying when Cindy came in with food and hot chocolate. We sat talking for a bit when I smelled Christy in the room and looked at her. I know I was being rude, but what does she expect from me? I mean, she literally put me in the hospital. I saw Jeff and Delia walk in and I also saw how Christy stiffened when Delia touched her. She looks almost outside her comfort zone. So she doesn't like to be touched, hey? I thought to myself with a plan forming in my head. "I think you fixed him up the wrong way," was her last words and she left. Delia and Cindy started laughing at me, saying, "We like her, can we keep her?" And that is when a growl ripped from my throat and made the whole room silent. I could still hear retreating footsteps and realized my growl did not affect her. A few days later and I'm back to my normal self, well, almost normal. The only thing that changed was me having S*X every night listening to hear when Christy comes to her room, and then I made sure I had the girl screaming, which is not very hard with these sluts. They can really put on a show. I woke up and got ready for training. When I left the room, I walked smack into Christy, who just groaned and moved away. I looked at her and asked her to walk with me to the training grounds and, once we were there, I put my hand on her back as if to push her forward, but instead wanted to see how she reacted. As I predicted, she stiffened under my touch and gave me a look to kill. I was still smiling at myself when I heard her speak. "You know what, Zanan, if you want to keep on doing what you are doing, try doing so without touching me, because the next time I will break more than just your ribs." She looked at me and then waked off to go and stand in the middle of Zane and Kyle. They never said anything about me losing the fight, and it is better that way. It seems like they know what is good for them. We got the same drill as yesterday. The third one back gets to choose their sparring partner. Crystal POV seems like Tommy changed the playing field to make sure Zanan and I didn't spar again. And it's not like I can lose now, because he knows that I'm faster than Zanan and also stronger. I kept at pace running with Zane and Kyle when a movement caught my eyes further down the path. I told Zane to distract everyone and make it believable. He just nodded and I started running faster. I was at the spot where I saw something when I heard a painful scream and the running stopped. I moved forward more into the woods and away from the path and smelled the air. But doing that, I directly covered my nose because that smell was horrible and it burned. I tried following the smell without vomiting and came to a clearing. Just when I stepped foot inside, I heard a growl and large paws running my way. I jumped out of the way and was now face to chest with a very ugly and very large wolf, and I mean large. I had to take a step back in order to look up and see its face, and it was ugly and it was deformed. Before I could say anything, the wolf snapped its teeth my way and I rolled out of the way. What is this thing? It's a wolf, but I think it took something or someone experimented on it. That smell that burns your nose is the smell of biochemicals. Someone created him, and he is here for us. See what you can find out in his memories before he kills us. My wolf went quiet and I got to work on staying alive. I dodged and got a few blows, but it seemed like it didn't do anything except anger the thing. And when I wanted to land a head punch, the wolf literally just fell over and was dying. What happened? You will not like the answer. Did you find anything? Yes, a lot actually. As I stood there looking at the dying wolf, its body started to change. It looks like he wants to shift but he can't. Whatever he was injected with left him deformed. He died half human and half wolf. I dragged the body out of sight and covered it with leaves and branches, then made my way back to the training field where I spotted Delia and Zanan talking, and Delia did not look happy. Zania, you need to care more, and not just about the fact that you lost, but about everything. Someone is literally out there looking for you and you have no idea why or even have any interest in finding out. Other wolves are paying the price. Delia, I told you, I am looking into it and I know other wolves are paying the price. Just keep your mouth shut and let me deal with this unless you want to start a panic. All I'm saying is you need to start trusting these wolves because you might not have a bond with them, but they chose you as their alpha and as their leader, so you better start showing your worth that title. I will deal with this on my own, Delia. And I still have another wolf to find out what we have that is making rogues hunt us. I just hope you do it soon, because whoever Crystalia is, she might need help. I listened and I know I shouldn't, but I couldn't help it. And now I wish I hadn't, because I found the other wolf, and found that he was looking for me. But why would someone be looking for us if we didn't even know each other until now? Delia spotted me and ran straight towards me. Where were you? I needed to clear my head, so I strayed from the path. Are you okay? Yes, no. God, I don't know anymore. Zane got hurt, broke his ankle, the run was cut short and everyone came back except for you. I'm sorry, is he okay? He will be in a few days. I looked over Delia's shoulder at Zanan. He seemed like he hated me and was trying his best to show it, but I don't believe that for even just a second. Hey Delia, you seem to know Zanan pretty well. Why do you think he has never chosen a mate? She looked at me funny, and I mean funny. Her mouth was set into a hard line and her hands fisted at her sides. She looked at me and for a second her eyes were as cold as Zanan's when we first met. You have no idea? What pack are you from? Because every pack knows what happened to Zanan Black and the Blood Moon pack. She said and looked at me as if needing to realize something, but didn't.